Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of consonant harmony. That is, harmonic properties that are stable, chords that sound good, don't have a lot of dissonance in them, usually creating something that feels gorgeous or beautiful, though that doesn't always mean positive or uplifting. Today we're going to check out some Explosions in the Sky, which is definitely a group that I think embodies this well. We're going to look at the song The Only Moment We Were Alone off of their album The Earth Is Not a Cold, Dead Place. Let's dive into this, see what Explosions in the Sky is bringing to the table today. We have a nice 3 right here. There's so much tension here. It's a bit on the nuanced side, but it wants to develop into something. It's just waiting for the right time, and it's not coming around. Interesting. I want to see what they do with this because the counterpoint is fairly busy. I'm interested to see how they build off of that without making it cluttered, convoluted. like a modification of a reggaeton beat. This feels fairly stripped back for them. I mean, a lot of the times we're just getting this, 2 guitars and a bass. Kind of a marching idea on the snare. This is the 3rd or 4th, a very intimate moment. Volume-wise, we're still pretty full on, but it's very spacious. It sounds quiet. Rising guitar riff. Yeah. An escalation of sorts, but also could be interpreted as a rising up. Personal betterment, or maybe getting to that point that we were anticipating earlier. This left guitar over here does some really interesting things. I like that suspension, just nothing for several beats. Everything's locked in. It's not as multifaceted. There's no counterpoint here. Y'all remember that part? The snare accents are cool. All right, maybe that goes into the next track. Regardless, though, it's a very abrupt moment to wrap that up, given that we're in the middle of a phrase. We haven't completed the chord progression when we just stop and allow the last couple of notes to ring out before moving into that next track. That's an interesting way to do that, because Explosions in the Sky, from the limited number of songs I've heard from them, tend to do resolution very well. In fact, that peak does a great job of having the release that I had been expecting from so many sections prior to it. So I felt that putting that at the end in the way they did it, bringing ideas back, was a great way to wrap everything up. It just, they didn't conclude the finale well. They purposefully halted it in the middle of its chordal progression. Why? I have no idea. It makes it feel undercut. It gives it a bit of an underwhelming ending. It's kind of anticlimactic. We don't get that nice fine finale to it. We don't get the nice ending. And as soon as I felt that we were like at this peak, and I looked and I was like 9 seconds left, and I just thought to myself, we can't finish this phrase in 9 seconds. I said, it's going to be very abruptly stopped. And I just thought to myself, we're going to get that last chord and then that's going to be it. And we didn't even get that. There just wasn't enough time to get all of it in there. Very intentional, especially after 10 minutes of conditioning us on this. This entire song is in 3/4, working on 4 chord ideas. We never deviate from that until the end of the song, when we don't get our final chord. Very intentional. Very intentional. And it's possible that it makes sense going into the next track too. The context of that could absolutely inform why this one is cut short. But aside from kind of feeling let down, I don't have anything else to add to the finale other than what it is and how I wish it wasn't that. This song is based around 4 instruments, 2 guitars, a bass, and some drums. And a lot of this is instruments dancing around each other. We start off fairly simple. We have 2 guitars kind of doing a little call and response thing. Eventually the bass comes in underneath that. We get some very light drumming after that. And I think around, like a minute and a half or 2 minutes in, we have a full band. This is how most of the song operates. I guess I forgot the part where we explore this section now that we have the full band. Eventually, though, we will drop down to just a couple guitars, maybe a bass, maybe some light drumming. That's not consistent, but a couple guitars is always consistent, and we'll create a new foundation and build from there. We'll get to a nice section that's very full, every instrument's participating in it, and then we'll wipe the slate clean again and start over. That is this track in a nutshell. And after we've done that 4 times, then we finally hit the big moment. We turn on that distorted guitar, we create the wall of sound, we do the finale. Even the finale, though, that punch up with the distorted guitar is after we've listened to a little bit of 2 guitars talking and dancing for a little bit, dancing around each other. Then you get the punch in. So even that is a bit of building up from 2 guitars. Pretty standard for Explosions in the Sky. They love this roller coaster style of writing. You hit your peaks, you bring it back down. You hit another peak, you bring it back down. All of these peaks are eventually ascending to the peak, which you'll get at the end of the track. That's not the only way they write, but it is something that I found fairly consistent in their writing. But I think that the dancing instruments is a key component to this. So much of the first half, maybe 3/4 of this track, is the interplay between the instruments. At one point, I even talked about it getting almost too complex, where the two guitars are just out of sync with each other. And instead of getting this nice rhythmic counterplay, it just becomes messy and noisy. If they were perfectly, half of a beat phased from each other, you would have a nice rhythmic device going on. If they were perfectly in sync with each other, there's another good rhythmic device. But, a 16th, a 32nd note, just, a few milliseconds behind or ahead of each other. And now it just becomes a cluttered mess. You need a little bit more distance between your ideas. We saw a couple of sections like this, but I don't think it was the main way this was represented. But we do see an escalation where it starts out very palatable to listen to the two guitars rhythmically. It pushes into the unpalatable as their ideas are just a step out of sync with each other. And then eventually the monolith at the end where everything is perfectly in line. The two guitars don't even have counterpoint anymore. They are playing the exact same thing. I talked about this wall of sound, this monolithic idea at the end of the track, as every single instrument was in on this concept. There is a slipping down, a simplification of writing as we head towards the end of this track. And I think that's the way I want to view it. Both of the guitars represent two ideas, two people, two whatever. Sometimes beautiful together. Absolutely love the choreographed dance they have. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes there's some overlap. By the end of the track, though, there's a unification to it. I don't know what that might represent. It could be an isolation, soloing out one of the two and focusing on that exclusively, or it could be a pure harmony found between the two. Instead of two compatible ideas, working simultaneously, they have now fused through compromise to create a unified idea, half of one idea, half of another, so that they're not separate at all anymore. Taking this into the realm of people, I think about the way people live together. Not necessarily in a house, but just people in general, how we live in communities. There are times when everything's harmonious. There are times where there's conflict and friction. And hopefully, though, at the end of the day, we can all come together as humans, as people, and understand that we need to operate from a fairly, progressive viewpoint where it's about the betterment of everything and how that can rise everyone up. I don't know why I got real southern with that. Rise them up. But I do think that this probably is looking at a positive read on this rather than a negative one like isolation or separation, due to the music of the end and the music of most of this track, looking at the chord progression being very positive. This is a feel-good song. Makes me feel very warm on the inside. The end makes me feel like I could do anything. I'm pumped up, dude. It's a big ending with a powerful chord progression under it and just the unification of all the instruments. It just continues to rise up in energy and intensity and positivity. Pure strength. And most of this track does explore a type of joy. There's a beauty to the way the guitars interact throughout this entire track. Even at the times when rhythmically it's a bit muddy, harmonically it is still solid, still stable. I think it is about trying to find strength in coming together. However you want to, split that metaphor into more specific ideas, I think that still is the core process going on with this track. But if so, and the ending is an abrupt ending in the middle of a sentence, that doesn't sound like it ends on a good note. Sounds like an unceremonious cutting off. So that's not a great way to wrap that up. I did have one slight issue with this track. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I did not like the production at the end. I think that the distorted guitars coming in were just a hair bit too something. Too noisy, too fuzzy, too distorted, too overdriven. I'm not really sure what it was too much of, but it just didn't feel right. Though I think talking myself out of this, I don't know why I always talk myself out of stuff. Most of this song is very open. It's pleasant, not just in its harmonies, its melodies, its counterpoint, but also in its expansiveness. No matter how loud the volume is, a lot of these sections just feel, well, alone. A couple of instruments in a vast sound sphere, so much space left on the extents of this track. Amplified even more so during the quieter sections. Not just the sections that feel quieter, but especially that penultimate section where if you watch the volume down there, we did lose a good 15 dBs. Most of this track is at full volume, regardless of how it sounds, but there towards the end, we did have a moment of actual quietness. There's a lot of space, empty space, silence around this track. Listen to the drums and how minimal they are. It isn't until the end that we actually have at least 4 hits per bar. Several of these sections, you get a couple of hits and then nothing. A lot of this feels intimate. It feels open, and the lack of distortion and any major focus on compression allows the song to feel very clean, too. This may be why the ending didn't work for me, because there's a clean way to bring distorted guitar in, and they chose not to. The guitar is muddy, it's gritty, it's got a filth to it, and I think it takes a song that, for the most part, is open and makes it feel claustrophobic. There is a big wall of sound here, all the instruments coming together. It is going to fill more space, but there's something specific about this guitar tone that fills more space than I feel like it should, and it takes a song that feels like it has a massive sound sphere and shrinks it down. The song becomes claustrophobic, which seems to go against the general feeling of elation and rising above and strength that I get out of the end here, the unification of the instruments as well as the chord progression. It feels like we're taking off, we're leaving the earth, we are exploring new boundaries, and yet our world feels smaller than ever. I don't know, it just feels inverted to me, and I think I would prefer a cleaner, distorted sound, if that yeah, I know that doesn't make sense. That's opposite words right there. But something a bit more expansive, while still being distorted. But it could also be that that would go against the authorial intent. Maybe this feeling of claustrophobia of the world caving in around me is what Explosions in the Sky wants me to feel at that moment. No lyrics on this one, which I think is every track from them. So let's just dive into the outro here. These are my thoughts. Explosions in the Sky, the only moment we were alone. Let me know what you thought of this. If there's anything that stood out to you, anything that you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on, do you have your own take, perspective, or opinion on this? Let me know. Add all of that and anything else that you would like to add into the comment section below. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all 3 of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos. you.